everyone, and welcome to another deep dive. This one is kind of unique. We usually bring in source material like books or articles, but this time a listener actually sent us a podcast script.
Wow. That is a meta, isn't it?
Yeah.
A podcast script all about improving English.
Exactly. I was a little unsure how this would go, but honestly, this script is packed with great tips and insights. It's like whether you're just starting out or you've been learning English for years, there's something in here for everyone.
Yeah, and you know what I find really fascinating? The way the script itself, embodies those effective communication techniques.
Hmm.
It's like a case study in good language use.
I see what you mean. Okay, so I was looking through this earlier, and a few big themes jumped out at me. One was this whole idea of like building a solid foundation in English.
The basics, right?
Yeah, the basics, grammar, vocabulary, pronunciation. It makes sense, though. You got to get those down before you can really, take off.
Absolutely. It's like you can't build a house without a strong foundation, right?
Yeah, 100%. So I'm curious, what really struck you in that foundation section? I noticed they mentioned a few language learning apps, but I'm more interested in the overall approach.
For me, it was that the script really digs into the why behind those basics. Like, okay, we all know grammar is important, but WHY? How does understanding grammar actually help you communicate better? They did a good job with that.
Right. It's not just about memorizing rules, it's about understanding how the language actually works.
Exactly.
Now, one technique they mentioned that I've always been kind of curious about is shadowing. I've heard the term, but I don't really get what it is or why it's supposed to be so effective.
Oh, shadowing is great. It's not just passively listening. It's more like you're actively mimicking a native speaker.
Yeah.
Their pronunciation, their rhythm, everything.
It's like I'm trying to sound exactly like them.
Yeah. And what's cool is by doing that, you're training your mouth muscles in your brain to naturally produce those sounds.
It's like a workout for your English. And it actually ties into another big thing the script talks about, which is immersion, right? Like surrounding yourself with English as much as possible.
And that's where I think a lot of people, they get kind of scared. Like they think, oh, I have to move to England or something to do that. But the script does a good job of breaking it down.
Yeah, it gives us little things you can do, right? Like even just, they said narrating your day in English, like I'm making coffee, I'm going for a walk.
It sounds silly, but it works. It's those micro immersion moments.
And I like how they emphasize, finding what works for you. They mentioned some apps like Duolingo and Babbel, but the best tool is the one you'll actually stick with, right?
Totally. It's about finding what clicks with you and your learning style, personalized learning.
So speaking of personalized approaches, this next section I thought was really interesting, dealing with the fear of making mistakes. We all get that feeling of oh, I don't want to sound stupid.
Oh, yeah. We've all been there. But the script flips that on its head. It talks about mistakes as being opportunities to learn.
I love that.
Yeah.
And sometimes, those mistakes lead to the funniest moments.
Exactly. It's important to be able to laugh at yourself.
Yeah, it reminds me of this time I was trying to impress this French friend of mine, with my sophisticated French vocabulary. And I ended up saying something that translated to I am a talking donkey.
Oh, no.
I mean, we all had a good laugh about it later, but, it wasn't exactly what I was going for.
But see, those moments help you remember. And on a more serious note, the script touches on the psychology behind that fear. We're afraid of judgment, of seeming incompetent.
Which is so natural, right? I mean, everyone makes mistakes when they're learning.
Absolutely. And I think that's a key takeaway from the script. It's not about avoiding mistakes altogether. It's about changing our attitude towards them.
Viewing them as stepping stones instead of roadblocks.
Exactly. Okay, so the script goes on to talk about all sorts of tools and resources for language learning. I don't want to just run down a list, but there are a couple that I'd love to dig into a bit deeper.
Yeah, let's do it. I was actually curious about one in particular. They mentioned this app called Anki.
Ah, Anki.
I've heard of it, but I'm not really sure what it is. It's just flashcards.
It's like flashcards, but on steroids. It uses this thing called spaced repetition, which is a fancy way of saying it. It schedules when you review things based on how well you remember them. So it's it's actually anticipating when you're likely to forget something, and it's hey, time to review this.
That's so cool. It's it's reading your mind.
Well, not quite your mind, but your memory patterns, yeah.
Yeah.
And it makes learning way more efficient.
So it's not just about drilling yourself over and over.
Yeah, it's about being smart about how you practice.
Oh.
And then another tool that I thought was interesting was Hello Talk.
Oh, I've heard of that.
Have you tried it?
I haven't actually. What's so special about it?
Well, a lot of language exchange apps, they just kind of randomly pair you with people. But Hello Talk, it connects you with native speakers who are learning your language.
So it's like you're both helping each other.
Exactly. It's a win-win. You can practice speaking, you can get feedback on your writing, you can even just like chat about culture and stuff.
That's awesome. Okay, so we've talked about a lot of different techniques, resources, all that. But I think it's important to keep in mind, like, what's driving you to learn English?
The motivation, right?
Yeah, the script doesn't really talk about that directly, but I think it's the underlying factor behind everything. So, like, take a second and think about it. What do you hope to achieve?
What are your goals?
Let's say a year from now, you've made significant progress. What's different? What are you doing that you couldn't do before?
Maybe you're finally watching those movies without subtitles and you're like, I get all the jokes now.
Or maybe you're traveling and you can actually have real conversations with people, you know?
Or maybe it's something professional. Like you're able to lead that meeting in English where you get that promotion that requires strong language skills.
And it's not just about those external things, right? It's also about how you feel. More confident, more capable.
You know, that sense of accomplishment you get from mastering something new? And that confidence, it can spill over into other areas of your life too.
It really is amazing how much of a difference improving your English can make. But instead of just looking at a year from now, let's go even further. You know, the script touches on the long-term benefits. So let's say it's 5 years down the road, you've been putting in the work, using these tips, really honing those skills. What's changed?
I like that. It's like we're not just thinking about quick fixes, but like really integrating these skills into our lives.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So 5 years from now, what does your world look like?
Well, first of all, those things we were talking about, watching movies without subtitles, feeling confident at a business meeting, all that, that's just like second nature now.
It's not even something you have to think about anymore.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You're doing it. But it's more than that too, right? Think about the connections you've made. Maybe you have friends all over the world now, people you can really talk to, share ideas with.
Oh, yeah, that's huge. And then, professionally, who knows what doors have opened? International travel, new job opportunities. Maybe you're even using your English to, like, advocate for something you're passionate about.
And you know what I find really powerful?
Hmm.
It's not just about those external achievements. It's also about the personal growth. Like
Yes.
through the process of learning English, you've also developed all these other skills, perseverance, adaptability, cultural awareness, all that.
Right, it's like it makes you a more well-rounded person overall.
And as we wrap up this deep dive, I just want to reiterate that 5-year vision, that's just a starting point. The great thing about language learning is it's a journey,
Hmm.
you know, it never really ends.
So for everyone listening, take a moment to picture that future self. What has your improved English allowed you to do? What dreams have you accomplished? What relationships have you built? Let that be your motivation. You know, keep that vision in mind.
And don't forget to enjoy the process. There will be challenges, but celebrate those small wins. Have fun with it.
This has been such a great deep dive. Practical tips, motivational insights. I mean, we've covered a lot of ground.
It's been a pleasure exploring all this with you and with our listeners. And remember, this is just the beginning. You have everything you need to succeed.
So go out there, make those English dreams happen. And until next time, happy learning.